WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 o'clock in Lagos. Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Peaceful protesters arrested in the Gambia over steep hike in data prices.
I'm not here to negotiate. The instruction is, the order is for you to disperse. That is the instruction. You are unlawfully assembling here. We are lawful. We are legal. Get him arrested. Get him arrested. We are lawful. We are legal. Get him arrested.
Deadly landslide hits Guinea's Manea, leaving at least 15 people dead. Liberian court orders eviction of former ruling party CDC over unpaid rent.
The recent decision of the Sixth Judicial Circuit Court of Liberia regarding the eviction of the Congress for Democratic Change from its headquarters is a lawful order that must be respected. Said action will be executed on the morning of Saturday, August 23rd, 2025.
And death toll in Benin Bo's tragedy rises to 43. Only 9 survivors confirmed. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Welcome to the broadcast, and my name is Sankule Janko. We begin this news edition in the Gambia, where tensions rose this morning as police arrested peaceful protesters opposing a controversial new directive that has sharply increased mobile data prices. The outcry follows a move by the Public Utility Authority regulator, that is PURA, which set a price floor of $50, about $0.60 per dollars per 1 gig, triggering a 243 hike in data cost. The decision has eliminated affordable bundles, hitting ordinary Gambians, especially the youth, the hardest. Civil society groups, including Gambians Against Looted Assets, Gala, and Team Gomsa Bopa, joined by concerned citizens, staged a peaceful protest outside Peru's headquarters demanding an immediate reversal. However, the demonstration was disrupted by police, who arrested several participants for organizing an unauthorized gathering.
I'm not here to negotiate. The instruction is, the order is for you to disperse. That is the instruction. You are unlawfully assembling here. We are lawful. We are legal. Get him arrested. Get him arrested. We are lawful. We are legal. Get him arrested. Take him on lawful. We are legal. We are lawful. We are legal. We are lawful. We are legal. Hey. Get him arrested. Get him arrested.
Well, earlier I spoke with Modujani, a Gambian journalist who witnessed the protest. Let's hear his account.
When the police saw writings on social media that young people said they would be going out to protest at Pura, they immediately released a statement to say the protest would be unlawful because no permit have been issued. So once these people came out, the first batch that came, they negotiated with them and they dispatched. But again, another group of young people came, with their placards and stood in front of the Pura building. And the PIU officers just came and picked them and then parked them inside their PIU pickup and then took them to Kairaba police station.
What is the update? Have they been charged? The young people who have been arrested, including Killer Ace, an activist as well as a musician, because he was among the people who were arrested. Have they been charged?
So far, so good. No information with regards to them being charged have come out because we have managed to spoke to the guy who was on the ground. That is one ASP, Assistant Superintendent Mr. Sar, to ask whether these people are going to be charged or they are going to be released. But no concrete information was given. Just like you rightly mentioned, Claire Ace is one of the people who was arrested, as well as Yusuf Taylor, commonly known as Flex Dan. Lamin C was also arrested, and Falu Galas. This, among other young people, are the ones that were arrested earlier today.
Modujani is a Gambian journalist who attended the protest earlier today. Let's head to Guinea, where more than 15 bodies have been recovered after a major landslide struck overnight Wednesday into Thursday in the commune of Mania near the capital Conakry. A section of the mountain collapsed by burying 17 houses, injuring several people and leaving dozens homeless. Rescue workers and volunteers have been on the scene since the early hours, searching for survivors and assisting those affected. On Thursday, the Prime Minister and the Speaker of the Transitional Parliament visited the site to assess the scale of disaster and express the authorities' solidarity. Augustine Colley has the details.
On the hills of Mania, the images are devastating. Entire compounds lie buried under tons of earth and rock. Grieving families watch helplessly as rescue teams work tirelessly to find survivors. Mamadou Jude, one of those affected, describes the scene, his pain, and the extent of the losses.
25 houses have collapsed, with 2 buildings buried under the rubble. So far, only parts of 3 or 4 homes have been recovered, while the rest remain trapped.
Authorities on the ground expressed a deep sorrow and promised stronger measures to prevent such tragedies. The Prime Minister, Amadou Ureba, who visited the site, lamented the disaster and urged greater vigilance.
We are witnessing a tragedy here. Thankfully, authorities had created the dump site just behind the area. Otherwise, the disaster would have been even more devastating.
From the Transitional Parliament, the message was clear. Urgent action is needed to avoid future catastrophes. Dr. Dan Sakuruma called for the demolition of houses built in high-risk areas.
A report from Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Balde in Conakry, voiced by Augustine Colley. In Benin, authorities have revised the death tolls from last week's tragic bus accident into the Wame River to 43 after more bodies were recovered. Of the 54 passengers on board the STM Niger bus, and only 9 survived, according to officials from Niger, where the bus company is based. Christopher Aticho has more in this report.
Of the 43 bodies of the victims identified, 35 are of Nigerian nationality. According to the Beninese Civil Protection Agency, the bodies were transferred to the Savi morgue before being buried according to local traditions. A Togolese national was repatriated to his family. The 2 victims' nationalities include Togo, Ghana, Chad, Benin, and Germany. The OSEC, thus Civil Security Response Organization, plan was activated immediately after the incident, mobilizing emergency security and health services. The operations were overseen by the Nigerian ambassador to Benin and the Beninese authorities. The Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, on behalf of the CNSP and the government, also offered its condolences to the victims' families and wished a speedy recovery to the injured. A book of condolences was also opened at the Nigerian embassy in Cotonou. The exact cause of the accident remains to be determined. Investigations are continuing. The Beninese government has reminded transport companies and drivers to scrupulously comply with the traffic laws to prevent similar tragedies.
A report by Aziz Adam Sule in Cotonou, voiced by Christopher Atijo.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Liberia, the National Police say they have been instructed by the judiciary to enforce an eviction order against the former ruling Congress for Democratic Change (CDC). The eviction set for Saturday targets the party's headquarters has sparked political backlash. The move follows a long-standing legal battle over the property's ownership. Police Inspector General Gregory Coleman, in a social media statement, urged CDC members and public to remain calm and law-abiding. Here is an excerpt of the IGP.
The recent decision of the 6th Judicial Circuit Court of Liberia regarding the eviction of the Congress for Democratic Change from its headquarters is a lawful order that must be respected. The 6th Judicial Circuit Court of Liberia has requested the Liberia National Police to assist in the execution of a writ of possession in the case mentioned above. Said action will be executed on the morning of Saturday, August 23, 2025. As a professional and impartial institution, the Liberia National Police reaffirms its neutrality and commitment to uphold the law without fear or favor. Our role is not political, but constitutional, to protect lives, preserve the public order, and ensure that the lawful decisions of the court are carried out in a peaceful manner. We're calling on the Congress for Democratic Change, as one of Liberia's influential political institutions, to demonstrate leadership, responsibility, and respect for the authority of the courts. Compliance with the law is not a sign of weakness, but a powerful example of statesmanship and a commitment to the democratic process. We urge all partisans and supporters of the CDC to remain calm, peaceful, and law-abiding. Liberia has come way too far in strengthening its democracy for us to allow political disagreement to derail the peace we have worked so hard to build. The CDC has played a central role in our nation's democratic journey. It now has an opportunity to lead by example by choosing peace over confrontation, dialogue over disruption, and respect for the rule of law over defiance. Let us remember that upholding the rule of law honors the sacrifices of our past, safeguards the future for generations to come.
That's the Inspector General of Police in Liberia, Gregory Coleman. Meanwhile, officials of CDC, however, have condemned the order, calling it politically motivated and an attempt to weaken the opposition. In Nigeria, security concerns remain high following two separate incidents of violence in Plateau and Borno states. At least 5 people were killed in Plateau, while troops repelled a terrorist attack in Borno, killing senior insurgent commanders. Usman Omar reports in Abuja.
Gunmen suspected to be Fulani militias attacked Tim Village in the Chakfem district of Mangu local government area, Plateau State, north-central Nigeria. Local residents say the assailants stormed the community late Thursday afternoon, shooting sporadically and burning down at least 10 houses. 5 people were killed in the assault, believed to be a reprisal over alleged cattle rustling. Troops from the Special Task Force deployed to the area engaged the attackers in a firefight, forcing them to retreat. Security forces say investigations are underway, but the community remains tense despite the return of calm. Meanwhile, in Borno State, troops of Operation Haɗin repelled a major assault by fighters linked to the Islamic State West Africa province in the border town of Wulgo. At least 7 insurgents were killed, including 2 senior commanders identified as Abu Nazir and Abu Fatima. Military sources confirmed that several other fighters were wounded during the fires exchange. Troops also recovered 4 motorcycles, though an armored vehicle belonging to the army was set ablaze by the retreating insurgents. These incidents highlight the ongoing security challenges facing Nigeria as communities in both the northeast and north-central regions grapple with armed violence and instability. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Omar reporting from Abuja.
Some political matters now. In Côte d'Ivoire, businessman and senior PDCI member Jean-Louis Bion has officially entered the presidential race. On Thursday, he submitted his candidacy documents to the Independent Electoral Commission. They say Bion says that if elected, his top priority will be to give young people greater opportunities and responsibilities. Imo Edit reports.
Surrounded by close collaborators, including Valerie Yapo, Jean-Louis Billon, long marginalized within his party, the PDCI, has chosen to chart his own path. By declaring his candidacy, he reaffirmed his determination to place youth at the center of this political project.
To ensure that priority is given to the common good and to the youth of Côte d'Ivoire, I have confidence in the future. I believe in a strong Côte d'Ivoire. I have prepared myself to lead this nation, to steer it safely forward, and to hand it over to the next generation in a better condition than when we found it.
Supporters describe Jean-Louis Billon as the man of the moment, an independent-minded, peaceful political actor free from constraint. Although registered as an independent candidate, the former minister has not ruled out representing the PDCI if the party decides to endorse him. His main challenger, PDCI President Tijan Jam, remains ineligible for now, as his name has been removed from the electoral roll.
Abidjan correspondent Marcel Ariston Blaze report presented by Imo Eded. Well, you're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal, and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Peaceful protesters arrested in Gambia over steep hike in mobile data prices. Deadly landslide hits Guinea's Mania, leaving at least 15 persons dead. Liberian court orders eviction of former ruling party CDC over unpaid rent. Meanwhile, death toll in Benin Boss tragedy rises to 43. Only 9 survivors confirmed. Still ahead in the news, we also have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We head to Mali, where customs officials at the Benella border crossing have intercepted over 20,000 explosives hidden in a vehicle, a major security bust in the heart of the central Sahel. The operation, led by the Directorate of Intelligence and Anti-Fraud, DRLF, followed a surveillance mission tracking the vehicle as it traveled toward a neighboring coastal country. The explosives were cleverly concealed under food bags and among cartons of alcohol and energy drinks. This comes on the heels of several large-scale seizures in July, including the discovery of 165 explosive sticks, 825 detonators, and 360 kilograms of mercury on 2 separate occasions in Bamako. Authorities warned that these materials were likely intended for armed groups operating in the Sahel region, raising continued concern over regional stability and cross-border trafficking. Meanwhile, Burkina Faso's Prime Minister is concluding a several-day visit to Mali this Friday. On Thursday, Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo held a working session with the Malian counterpart, General Abdoulaye Maiga. The meeting was aimed at strengthening relations between the two neighboring countries across several areas of cooperation. Bamako and Ouagadougou also reaffirmed their commitment to consolidating the consideration of the Sahel states. Well, Nadi Ditete reports.
During the talks, the two prime ministers first welcomed the regular consultations between their countries, saying they reflect strong ties of cooperation between Mali and Burkina Faso. At the meeting, Malian Prime Minister General Abdoulaye Maiga recalled the successes of the Confederation since its creation in September 2023.
Notre espace géopolitique s'est enrichi par la création de la Confédération des États du Sahel.
The Confederation of Sahel States, created just a year ago, has quickly distinguished itself through concrete actions addressing peace, security, counter-terrorism and socio-economic development. It has emerged as a political entity and a symbol of hope, contributing to peace and cooperation at sub-regional, regional and international levels.
For his part, Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo emphasized the need to build on the gains already achieved and to address the current challenges facing the AES bloc. What began as a defense alliance has now become a strategic choice under the leadership of our heads of state, aimed at making the Sahel a unified region capable of taking charge of its own destiny and addressing challenges collectively. Still, many challenges remain, and the legitimate expectations of the people of the Sahel, who continue to face historic struggles, are immense. Meanwhile, with terrorist attacks intensifying in both countries, Malian and Burkinabe forces continue to carry out joint operations along their common border. Before leaving Bamako, Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo was also received by the head of state, General Assimi Goïta.
Well, that's a report by our Bamako correspondent Ali Cham, presented by Na Didi Tete.
Politics,
analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, our guest interview segment takes us to Côte d'Ivoire, where businessman and senior PDCI member Jean-Louis Billon is officially now a candidate for the October 2025 presidential election. On Thursday, he submitted his candidacy documents to the Independent Electoral Commission. Billon says that if elected, his top priority will be to give young people greater opportunities and responsibilities. Well, our guest is Austin Abe, a regional political analyst, and Vademos advocacy officer. He weighs in on what impact beyond could have an independent election, including the possible of the businessman contesting on the PDCI's ticket itself.
There are two things that individuals seek to have: money and power. So when you have captured money, you want to then capture power to sustain that money. What I mean is finance. So if you look at the African architecture, political architecture, most people who are considered to be businessmen and wealthy, they are also likely the ones who will either sponsor candidates for elections or they throw in and then they go ahead to contest elections. But the only challenge is that until there is a collective of opposition political candidates or opposition political party to rally around to prosecute the election against Alassane Ouattara, it will just be a mere announcement as a candidate. Independent candidates, particularly at the presidential level, has not seen any good effect. Maybe you can talk about Benin, where an independent candidate actually proved the way because it was one individual who was richer than the country. Unless a businessman does have that collective, it's not even a threat to Alassane Ouattara. For the now, I don't know his popularity because it's just coming in to the atmosphere politically. What it could do, it could disrupt the political arrangement. But if opposition candidates don't organize around him, it may just be another name on the ballot.
Jean-Louis Billon is from the PDC, a major opposition political party in Cote d'Ivoire, whose president has been declared ineligible to contest, and that is Tijan Cham. What do you see in terms of the possibility of him running on the PDC as ticket?
You see, that's why I said unless. So for the now, I will actually ask the PDC to adopt the businessman. The reason being that the threat to Alassane is the presidential candidate that will be disqualified. So, but it may be that the political party is actually the target of Alassane Ouattara. So, an independent candidacy will work better if Alassane Ouattara will not target him because it's a major the major opposition political party, the PDC. But I am saying, if he stays as independent candidate and has the collective support of opposition parties and candidates, he has more leverage, so that there is no targeted or weaponized attack on him because he's not a political party. Because I'm going to tell you what will happen. If he flies on the ticket of the PDC, ahead of the elections, certain individuals in the PDC will be arrested, unknown charges will be filed against them, and they will be taken out from the political atmosphere.
What do you say so?
Because it is a weaponization against opposition in Africa, particularly in countries where you have had series or attempt to elongate power. This is the fourth term of President Alassane Ouattara. It wouldn't give up so easily. It would do everything. I'm sure you are aware that he has already told the international community, including ECOWAS, that they should not bother about even commit to support any electoral activities or whatever. They must do so. They will have to register with, I think, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and one other ministry.
Do you see the possibility of Jean-Louis Billon collaborating or convincing other opposition parties in opposition collaboration front against President Alassane Ouattara?
I think that the decision to have even declared an independency would have been very strategic. I don't know. It may have been that the convention may have been held with the PDC, and the only way to do that would be for other political parties to align. We have to be an independent candidate. So it has to be a face of all political parties, not necessarily having a symbol of one political party. The election is just a few months away. If it was to be in Nigeria, I will tell you it will go nowhere as an independent candidate because elections are not something that happen overnight. 2-3 months on election and declaring your candidacy is actually not a very hopeful thing. But it is hopeful because of the circumstances in Cote d'Ivoire. The circumstances being that there's voter resistance against Alassane Ouattara and the likelihood that there will be violence in the election to perpetuate himself in power. So a new face can actually become an alternative. And that's what gives the businessman a good edge.
Well, Austin Aiba is a regional political analyst and Wademo's advocacy officer. And of course, in sports news, I have Christopher Atichu with me in the studio. And before we walk into the studio, that was a very interesting news in the CHAN, because that was breaking news, because host Kenya apparently, their hearts were shattered.
Yes.
I was having a conversation with a Kenyan friend prior to this game. He was bluffing. He was like, we are going to show Madagascar what we are made of. But unfortunately for the host country, tell us what happened.
But at least it's a history where at least for the first time all three host countries have been able to proceed to the quarterfinals of that particular tournament. And as you rightly said, Kenya's dream run at their debut to Total Energies African Nations Championship CHAN ended in heartbreak on Friday as Madagascar held their nerves to a dramatic penalty shootout to reach the semi-finals. After a tense 1-1 draw across 120 minutes, Madagascar prevailed 4-3 on penalty kickoff, and Madagascar now advanced to the semi-finals, continuing their reputation as African football giant killers, while Kenya bows out with pride, having inspired the nation in the first ever CHAN appearance. And there is also an ongoing game in the
CHAN game.
The CHAN game,
because we have Algeria taking on. Algeria currently is playing against.
It's Tanzania taking on Morocco at the moment.
Morocco taking on Tanzania, and it's still goalless.
It's still goalless at some 65 minutes of action at the moment.
Right,
goalless. But of course, we'll get to see what would happen tomorrow. Also, there is some action where Uganda will be taking on Senegal, and then Sudan would also be taking on Algeria as well.
Okay, very interesting games. But let's shift now attention to basketball before we come back to football momentarily. The African basketball, Afro basket, we've seen some interesting results as well yesterday.
Yes, yesterday also produced some fantastic results, and games between Egypt and Cameroon. We saw Cameroon show their prowess to win 95-68 over Egypt, and then also we saw Cape Verde bow in shame to Angola by losing 80-90, Angola winning on that particular encounter. And also tomorrow, which is the semi-finals, there will be some actions where Mali will be taking on Senegal at exactly 3 p.m. and then Angola would also be taking on Cameroon.
Well, finally, before I take a leave of you, back to football, Senegal's, of course, Al-Haji Malik Diouf's West Ham will be taking on Nicolas Jackson's Chelsea, even though he's not going to be playing for them anymore. Yes, but it promised to be a very interesting game. Yes. About 30 minutes away from now.
Yes, and so the FIFA World Cup champions are yet to pick their very first win in the EPL, drawing to Crystal Palace in the first encounter. And also tomorrow they will be in action against Mohamed Kudus' former club West Ham, as you rightly said. So Chelsea will be taking on West Ham tonight at exactly 7 p.m. as well. And also tomorrow there will be some actions where Manchester City will be taking on Tottenham Hotspurs, Wolves will be taking on Bournemouth, and also Brentford will be taking on Aston Villa, and Burnley would also be taking on Sunderland as well.
I hope the Senegalese international Al-Haji Malik Diouf will inspire his West Ham side, of course, against Chelsea tonight.
The Blues is always the Blues.
Well, thank you very much, Christopher Atichu with sports. Well, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Umu Danyogo for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X and Instagram at WADR English, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Sankule Janko. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinion.